Indigo Park just got a brand new ARG that hides a ton of secrets, from new teaser images, secret messages, and more, all of which seem to be pointing and hinting at the upcoming Chapter 2 in a lot of super dark ways. So, Indigo Park's very first chapter released earlier this year to a pretty stellar response, taking place in an abandoned theme park founded by Isaac Indigo, led by the main mascot Rambly and the multitude of other characters. The game has blown up thanks to its inspiration from other horror games like Poppy Playtime, and especially from its real-life equivalents, the Walt Disney parks, which it often completely mimics in its design. However, with the massive expectations for Chapter 2 and the admitted abundant flaws to Chapter 1, creator Unique Geese just ended up releasing a remaster to the first chapter, polishing up the title a little bit visually to make it more like what we can expect from Chapter 2, which is great to see. But most importantly for this video, there have also been a ton of secrets and even a little ARG added to the game to give us some breadcrumbs into the next chapter, and boy did they deliver. As going into the remaster, people very quickly started to point out that there were secret messages hiding all around the game. First, one on the main gate before entering the park, one on a trash can in Lloyd's Theater, one in Jetstream Junction on one of the plane wings, and finally one in Molly's chase scene on this wall here. This gives us 4 different code combinations, and as you've certainly already noticed, these messages aren't written in any kind of real text or language, rather just a bunch of made-up symbols and shapes. So how are we going to find these secrets hiding in them? Well, interestingly enough, also while playing the game, a couple of other secrets were found as well in the way of drawings. As if you collect every collectible in the game, and then in the final scene interact with 5 new Rambly plushes added in the remaster, an interactable printer can be activated, revealing a new drawing of Rambly, and behind a wall in the same scene, another drawing of Molly can be found as well, both of which again have these weird illegible symbols, but this time judged from the drawings being of the unique characters, the number of letters here, and the repetition at certain parts, we can infer that these symbols are actually spelling out their names, Rambly and Molly. This is something they also ended up doing in the trailer, as for a second during the end where it tells us there were new secrets, the new changes into more of these symbols. And this matters because these words contingent with their symbols now give us a partial key for what they mean. RAMBLEY, for instance, uses these symbols as a translation, and so on with the other words. And so then, now going back to our codes, we can use this partial alphabet to convert all of these symbols into actual messages, giving us the phrases YEILM, RILLRY, MORAMOO, and LEERAM. But then, you might be asking, what do we actually do with these codes? Well, going over to the Indigo Park merch store, following this update, a section was added to the page called Terminal. And when clicking on the page, it takes us to a mysterious code lock page that requires some kind of passwords in order to get in. And sure enough, when entering each of these newly found codes into the terminal, we end up getting a multitude of new teasers for each separate phrase. And first, starting with this teaser, the file name is called Beginnings and shows us what appears to be some kind of a lab type area with an egg in this little incubator, and I think Molly McCaw's design here. Now, the purpose of this teaser seems relatively obvious, as when playing Indigo Park, there are notably a bunch of seemingly lifelike characters that aren't suits, but also aren't animatronics or anything chasing us around the park. And seemingly this teaser confirms the very popular theory that these creations are not something paranormal or a human or puppet or anything like that, but rather are some kinds of experiments and are their own living things, very similar to games like Poppy Playtime and Bendy and the Ink Machine. And the file is likely called Beginnings because this image is where the creations in Indigo Park were originally created. More specifically Molly, because we could see her character model here and what looks like a bird egg inside of an incubator here, likely being how she was produced. In the next teaser, and possibly the darkest teaser, we get a file called Caged, which when viewing shows us none other than Lloyd the lion caged up behind bars. Now, this is absolutely massive because it's been widely speculated that the monsters that are in the game were not treated very fairly. And again, very similar to another game, the monsters were held in cages to be used by the staff, who saw them as nothing more than park mascots, not real living things. And this again seems to confirm that theory very much so. I don't know if these are meant to be Chapter 2 screenshots or just general lore teasers, but I really hope we get to explore this area because this looks insane. Almost as insane insane as the next teaser called Closed Door, which shows us none other than the room where the Molly chase scene ended and where we left her body there to rot. Or did it? As looking over at the image, we could see that there is blood here, suggesting this does take place after the chase scene, but we could see that Molly's body is nowhere to be found, leaving nothing but a blood trail going to the end of the hall, suggesting something had taken her body away, but then what? Well, the answers lie in the final image, Stage, where we could see the blood trail go straight into the theater with Lloyd, basically confirming that he had actually stolen the body of Molly and brought it back to his theater for his own purposes that we don't know yet. And I'm not even going to say it, but again, it does sound super familiar. Anyway, while that's all for the image teasers, that isn't all for the secrets, because in a couple of these images, you might have noticed that there are actually more codes hidden in the dark corners. For instance, in the caged one, there is a code symbol here, and in the beginnings one, there is another one here showing off the familiar symbols. Now, to solve the first one in the caged image, we can use our key to fill in all of the blanks for what we know, giving us this combination, but notably, we actually don't have translations for every symbol shown here. So thanks to some old-fashioned guesswork, we can fill in the blanks ourselves and finish the phrase, giving us, "We are not the same," which seems to be telling us, in my opinion, that again, the employees didn't treat the characters around the park very well and didn't see them as the same or equal. Furthermore, we could do the same with the message over in beginnings by filling in all the blanks and working out what it says to the rest, giving us the phrase, "First to release, second made." Now, I'm gonna admit, I've spent a long time trying to figure out what this message means, and I really don't have any concrete idea, so I'm not 100% sure on anything here. I assume, looking at the accompanying image, they could be saying this egg here is the first to release, like hatch in their second test, since, as we mentioned earlier, this teaser basically confirms there were labs creating these characters. Or possibly that Molly was the first of the creations to release, however, they had made one before her that must have went wrong somehow. I don't know, but if you have a better idea, leave it in the comments below. But again, that's not all for the secrets, there are even more. As when actually playing the game, outside of the teasers we already talked about, there is also one other interesting piece you might have missed. When we get to the Lloyd section where he attacks us and our critter cuff made a loud high-pitched noise scaring him off, the sound has actually changed in this update. And if you've done ARGs before, you might recognize this as a spectrogram, a type of encryption involving hiding images and data inside of sound files that to the naked eye and ear aren't noticeable. However, when pulling this sound and putting it inside of a spectrogram decoder, which visualizes our data set, we can again see there are even more symbols. And when doing the same process again of solving what we know, filling in the missing letters, we get the phrase "protect you," which obviously is referring to the sound that scares off Lloyd in the first place that protects us. But most importantly, with all of these teasers, they are all clearly meant to be teasing the upcoming chapter 2. And this is huge because after playing chapter 1, we were left with so many questions about these characters, a big chunk of which already got answered or at least teased in this ARG. So just imagine what kind of new doors they will open and what they will solve in chapter 2. It's going to be insane. I'm honestly shocked they didn't talk at all about Finley, who seemed like they were going to be the next focus of chapter 2, and as far as I've seen, they haven't really given them any teasers. So maybe they are trying to keep them under wraps and keep them hidden until we start to get more trailers and other updates sooner to chapter 2's release. And to make sure you don't miss any of those, subscribe if you guys enjoyed. This is my first Indigo Park video, and I'd love to see if you guys ended up enjoying it and want me to cover it further.